We offer welfare calls as part of guardianship. So this is an opportunity for students to voice any concerns that they have, any worries, or tell us the good things as well. How is school going? How's homestay? What's going good in their life? What do they need a little bit more support with? The frequency of those calls depends on the level of guardianship. So, for example, elite guardianship, we contact students every week. That's us proactively contacting students. Whereas limited guardianship is just once per term. So that doesn't mean that students can't contact us more. So if a student feels that actually they need to speak to us more than that once per week or once per term, they are welcome to contact us, and we won't stop them. It's just that we won't be putting in our diary to contact a student any more times than that. What we discuss will typically depend on the level of guardianship and what we have previously been discussing. So what we're always aiming for is to take into account what's been happening recently. So what's been happening at school, if there's been any significant dates, for example, maybe for students in year, let's say year 13, they're applying for university. Well, by October, they need to be really writing up all the personal statements. By January, they need to have submitted their UCAS application. So those kinds of dates we'll be talking about. Same for exam season. Same for if they've got a school trip coming up that we've been sent some communication about, then we'll be saying, have you got, have you sent in the letter? Have you responded to school? Sorry. And then from a more pastoral perspective or academic perspective, if we've had a recent school report or attended a parents' evening, or maybe school has simply contacted us or parents have contacted us to say things are not quite right, something needs, a bit more, perhaps the student needs a bit more support, then we'll discuss that with the student in a tactful way. Our aim with all of the welfare calls is to build rapport with the student. So we want students to, over time, it doesn't happen automatically, but we want them to have, we want them to feel safe in contacting us when they have any problems. So that call, maybe 1 week we've not got that much to discuss because not a lot's been happening compared to the previous time we contacted them. But another week, maybe there's been a lot happening. And then we want them to get familiar with talking to us and know our voices, know who we are, and see that, we are interested. And then at the point, if they have an emergency or something that they are concerned about, we want them to have confidence to ring us. We don't want them to have to wait until the next time we're scheduled to call. We want them to build confidence to contact us when they need something at that time, not to wait. There's something called the National Minimum Standards in the UK. It's set by the UK government, requiring that that guardians contact students a minimum number of times. So we do meet all of those requirements. If it does come up in any of the documentation about requirements of guardianship, then we meet all of those requirements as well. We want to prevent problems escalating, problems that they might be having at school or in the homestay, or just generally. Kids are growing up, they're dealing with lots of different emotions, and especially for international students who are in a completely new environment, new culture, speaking a different language every day, it can be hard work, it can be draining in terms of the brain energy and just the overall energy. So with our experience, by having those phone calls, we can identify when things might be getting a bit too difficult, or they might need a bit of a break, and just someone new to talk to, and someone to talk about these things to, and the experience that they're having. having a problem at school, what we always try to encourage is for the student to build a relationship with the house parent. So the reason for this is, well, there's a few reasons. One is if they've got an issue in the school, the house parent will be able to solve it a lot more quickly than us at StudyLinks, because they're at the school and they will know immediately how to resolve it, depending on the personalities of the different students involved or the different teachers involved, and they will know the quickest way. They might have personal phone numbers, this kind of thing, that we don't have access to, that we're not allowed access to. So that is number one, that for speed, things can get done a lot quicker. Incredibly important as well is the relationship. In fact, this is more important. So number one, really, the relationship between the house parent and the student really is key, and we at StudyLinks want to encourage students to build that relationship. We want to develop in our students the confidence to speak to the house parents directly, and us to coach them in how to have effective conversations with those house parents, because those kinds of conversations and that experience of dealing with house parents will be useful for the rest of their life as well. An example of why it's important to speak to the house parents first, and what we would be encouraging of the students, is sometimes we may have in an evening a phone call on our emergency phone, and it may be from a parent on the other side of the world. So let's say it's Hong Kong, for example. So it's 2 a.m. in Hong Kong. The mother or the father, let's say the mother has called us to say that the student is having problems in the boarding house. So then the mother's awake, she's rung us. We then have to ring the house parent or the student. In fact, we ring the house parent in this example, and the house parent says, "Yes, I already know about it. I'm stood next to the child." So I hope you can see in this kind of example, and this is very typical actually, where the student first calls the parents or StudyLinks, where the house parent thinks this is ridiculous because I'm stood right next to them, I can help in this situation. And if StudyLinks or the parents are constantly contacting the house parent for things that the house parent thinks the student could talk to me directly, it can become a little frustrating for the house parent. So these are considerations, an example of a situation which we would want to try to avoid, and instead give the student confidence for how to speak, how to raise their concerns directly to the house parent. So because if they can raise it with the parents, then there is a way to raise it with StudyLinks. Likewise, there is a way to raise it with the house parent in a tactful way that won't upset people. So that's something that we're great at, teaching students how to communicate, how to be tactful, how to take into account the different personalities, and to express clearly what their needs are. Because often what the students are needing is very reasonable, but how they've explained it, because English is their second language, it can sometimes come across quite, for a British person, come across quite rude. And that's what we would want to avoid for a student. So I've gone on there about, what welfare calls that I've begun with, but it's just to say that if there is something that we think, okay, from this welfare call, you're telling me that you need X, Y, Z, then sometimes our advice would be, right, this is something that it would be beneficial for you to raise directly with your house parent. Of course, we would follow up, if depending on the urgency, maybe we will contact the house parent as well, but we still want students to have that first attempt. And then if if perhaps it wasn't as successful for the student, then we can always follow it up directly as well, if in the first instance we've left it to them.